Señoras y señoras, queridos amigos, es para mí muy importante exprimir antes de todo mi profunda gratitud a dos amigos especiales. Es Gerardo Martínez Cristerna, aquí presente, el director de la Fundación Ética Mundial de México, que ha organizado este gran convento, y a Carlos Paz, director de la Fundación Ética Mundial de Colombia para América del Sur. Ellos han hecho mucho para la divulgación de la idea de la ética mundial, cuál es el tema de esta conferencia. Evidentemente sería más agradable hacer este discurso en castellano, en lengua española, pero es más preciso y más fácil para mí de hacerlo en inglés. It is just a little easier for me to speak in English, and it is more precise, and I know many of you speak English, and others will have a very good translation. It's for me important to start with a view of the development of humanity, because global ethics has to do with the globe, with the whole of humanity. According to astrophysical research, the world has existed for more than 13 billion years. Human beings have existed on our planet since perhaps 1,500,000 years. Homo sapiens, as modern man is proud to call himself, Homo sapiens has existed since perhaps 200,000 years, since the Paleolithic era. The native inhabitants or indigenous people of the American continent and of Australia, Polynesia and Melanesia still attest to the Stone Age period. I met many in the course of some of my earlier travels. Nevertheless, the exceptional position of Homo sapiens among the animals, of human beings as they exist today, cannot be denied. From the start, a characteristic feature of human beings was their upright walk, holding the body upright, in our times taken as a symbol for the ethical deportment of humanity. Homo sapiens is characterized by a consciousness of the self, which has also become an ethical concept, the precondition for a complex syntactic language, which is specific to human beings alone. Man's capacity for strategic thinking and abstract thought and for self-reflection is based on language, but inherent to humanity are also directional emotions such as love and hate, hopes and fears, beliefs and wishes. All of this created the foundation for the higher cultural development of humanity and in particular for the human ethic. Thus, from primeval times, human beings gradually had to learn to behave humanely. Human beings are the only living creatures which have shown themselves to be capable of setting up social and cultural norms early and have continued to develop them. Already during the dawn of humanity, wherever fundamental needs appeared, wherever interpersonal pressures and necessities became apparent, guidelines for behavior emerged slowly, in thousands and thousands of years, specific conventions and traditions, in other words, ethical standards, rules, norms, and directives. These guidelines have been tested everywhere in the human race over the course of thousands of years. As one generation succeeds the next, these guidelines became, so to speak, ingrained. It is true that indigenous people developed neither writing nor science nor complex technologies, but it is also true that their thinking is logical, plausible, marked by a passion to order such things as human relationships. In early tribal cultures, and those which still exist today, such values and standards took the form of unwritten norms, not tenets, unwritten norms. These norms constituted the ethos of the family, of the clan, of the tribe, and were passed in the form of stories, parables, allegories, and traditions. But it was not a coincidence that very similar norms developed in very different regions all over the globe. The norms focused on 4 fundamental social areas. First, the first instance, a respect for life, prohibiting the killing of humans as one would kill animals, with certain exceptions to settle conflict or to punish violence. In second instance, regulations to protect the relationship between the sexes. Up until the present day, the rules governing who can be allowed to marry whom remain highly complex among Australian Aborigines and are far more complicated than in modern societies. Regulations to protect life, regulations to protect the relationship between the sexes. Third, regulations to protect property. The Neolithic Revolution meant that in addition to nomadic hunt-gatherers and fishermen, increasing number of people began to settle down, cultivate land, and domesticate animals. This led to a desire to own land and private property. And finally, fourth, regulations to protect truth, particularly in sophisticated civilizations and religions. Truthfulness and reliability became increasingly important, as did being respected and esteemed, honored by other people for particular human qualities. This understanding of truth is particularly in evidence in the Hebrew Bible. Emet, the Hebrew word emet, means fidelity, constancy, dependability. These 4 aspects are fundamental for a proper understanding of the concept of a global ethic. I mean ethical, not a complex system, but simple, some ethical principles and values which do not have to be imposed or artificially foisted upon mankind. They correspond to an ethical stance inherent to mankind based on man's essential nature and his development. A man needs to be made aware of them again for human coexistence to exceed. You see, my dear friends, as early as in 1990, in my book Projekt Weltethos in German, in English Global Responsibility, I presented my reflections on a global ethic to the public. In it, I developed programmatically the idea that the religions of the world can make a great contribution to peace of humanity only if they reflect on the ethic they already have in common, which has not to be invented, but which they have in common already now. It means a fundamental consensus concerning existing binding values, irrevocable standards, and fundamental personal attitudes. That is,